Hello and welcome to another edition of AZ Sportsbox Weekly. I'm Jude Binkley, here joined with Caleb Bushy. Caleb, how's your week been?
It's been both an exciting one and a heartbreaking one. From the mighty Mercury getting shattered in the second round, trying to pull out that buzzer beater once again, didn't work out, and we'll discuss more of that later in the show, I'm sure. But I don't know what's more shocking to me, that Tom Brady lost his first game in the Bucs uniform, or that the Cardinals won their first game of the season against the defending NFC champions. It's definitely been a shocking week. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And talking about that game, the Arizona Cardinals started their second year in the Cliff Kingsbury era, heading up to Santa Clara to take on the defending NFC champion San Francisco 49ers. Now, the talk of the offseason for the Cardinals is that Kyler Murray got his number one weapon in DeAndre Hopkins, and it showed off this game. So let's get right into those highlights. The 49ers would come out with their powerhouse offense from last year, getting on the board first with this field goal from Robbie Gould on their opening drive of the game. And on their next drive, Jimmy Garoppolo is able to find the speedy Raheem Mostert, who finds the gap and books it to the house for a 76-yard touchdown reception, the longest play of the game. And the Cardinals are down pretty early as Mostert takes it into the end zone and starts celebrating with his teammates. But the special teams would show up big and give Arizona an incredible opportunity with this punt block by Ezekiel Turner, as the Cardinals are able to jump on the ball and give it to their offense within the 10-yard line. An incredible opportunity for Kyler Murray. And he'd capitalize that on the next play as Kyler gets the ball to Chase Edmonds, who dives across the pylon for the first touchdown of the season. And what a way to do it, with an exclamation point as the special teams come up big in helping set up that score. San Francisco would find themselves on the fourth down, a yard out of the end zone, and how about that defense? Cards get the stop and are able to keep the game within a score. ASU alum Zane Gonzalez would make a 56-yarder to end out the half, his only field goal of the day, as he'd end up going 1 for 3. Kyler's running would start to wear down the 49ers defense, as a 22-yard scramble would put them back on top with this touchdown play. Murray would end up with 91 rushing yards on the day, as he's looking just as great as last year. But don't count out the reigning NFC champs, as Jimmy G throws a 5-yard touchdown to Jerick McKinnon with just over 8 minutes remaining, and we've got a pretty exciting game to open up the season. And how about this? The talk of the offseason, DeAndre Hopkins with a 33-yard reception. Looks like he's in the end zone, but they say he's a yard short, one of his 14 receptions on the day. And that set up the go-ahead touchdown run by Kenyon Drake as the Cardinals rally back and take the lead with just about 5 minutes remaining in the game. And 33 seconds left, fourth down, and the Niners need a touchdown. And the pass is broken up by Byron Murphy, and that's the ball game. The Arizona Cardinals taking on the Washington football team. First quarter, Kyler Murray looking to continue his success from last week, as he's able to find DeAndre Hopkins all alone in the end zone for his first touchdown as a Cardinal. The talk of the offseason has been paying off big time for Cliff Kingsbury. Now later that quarter, Kyler Murray is able to get it to Larry Fitzgerald for a third down conversion, one of his 7 receptions on the day, and that would help set up this play, as Kyler Murray's dual threat skills were on full display with this 14-yard touchdown, and Arizona is up 2 scores pretty early in the game. Heading into the second quarter, ASU alum Zane Gonzalez would have some chances, and he'd get one with this tight 49-yard attempt that would make it just inside the uprights. And later down in that quarter, he'd get an attempt that was a little bit easier, this one from 33 yards, and Gonzalez would go a perfect 3 for 3 in field goals in this game, making up for a rocky week last week. Heading into the second half, Dwayne Haskins, playing in a new scheme this year, picked just 14 spots behind Kyler in 2019, isn't able to find his receiver, and Washington will have to settle for a field goal, this one from 24 yards, for their first points of the game. Fourth and final quarter, Kyler Murray tucks the ball and takes off. He's slippery, dancing into the end zone, his second rushing touchdown of the game, and this one's for 21 yards. The Cardinals really showing off their passing and ground games. Now Washington would start to rally. They came back down 17 from last week as Haskins hits Terry McLaurin for a 24-yard touchdown, and they'd go for 2. Haskins drops back, but he isn't able to find any open receivers, so he'll book it up the middle, and he gets stuffed up just a yard shy. On their next drive, Antonio Gibson's handed off the ball, and he's able to power pass the Cardinals for a quick score. Some great blocks to go along with that play, and they would go for 2 again. as Haskins looks and searches, but it would be the same results as last time as his pass is ultimately deflected, and that'll help keep the game out of reach, keep it a 2-touchdown game for the Cardinals. 2-score game, Cardinals able to bleed out the clock with help from this run by Kenyon Drake. He'd have 86 rushing yards on the day. And Gonzalez ends it with his final field goal. Arizona defeats Washington 30-15, and the high-flying Cardinals start 2-0 for the first time since 2015. They'll stay home and take on the Detroit Lions this Sunday at 1:30.
The Phoenix Mercury's unbelievable season that lasted longer than the Phoenix Suns as they made it into the playoffs to the second round. Unfortunately, they got eliminated by trying to repeat the same thing that happened at the end of round one, but with the team not making the buzzer beater shot to break it all down. And this whole past entire season for the Phoenix Mercury in the wubble, the WNBA bubble, we got my man Jose Solis. I hope I got your last name right. All the way from my hometown of Gilbert, Arizona. It's actually so nice to have someone from G-Town on here. So welcome to ASB, man.
Thank you for having me here, Caleb. And that's actually the first time I've ever heard Gilbert called G-Town. So I'll keep that in mind.
See, this is what happens when we're gone from our hometown too long, you know? So
I've never heard anybody call it that, but that's beside the point. Of course, we're talking about the wubble, of course, and the Mercury. First of all, I thought that this season was going to take a turn for the worse once Griner left for personal reasons, of which we still don't know, and the team is not willing to say, neither Griner herself. But nevertheless, Brondello's crew did make the playoffs again, and I could not tell you how exciting that finish was. Not only did you knock off the defending WNBA champions, but you did it in style. You have one advantage over the Clippers. You came in clutch. I don't mean to be petty about that, but Shea Petty, what a shot! And the backstory behind that too, cut twice by the Mystics, the very team that won it all a year ago, and then she beats them at their own game at the buzzer with such confidence, truly such confidence. That's exactly what you want to see. And of course, the Mystics, they were channeling their own bubble suns of their own. They had gone on a tear the last couple of games of the regular season. And it literally came down to the last couple of the minutes of their last game. It was them and the Dallas Wings fighting for the last spot in the playoffs, and ultimately the Mystics were able to deliver. And their season came to an end, of course, courtesy of the Mercury. And then going into the Lynx game, the Lynx have been one of the toughest teams in the entire WNBA. We've known that for quite a few years now. And early on, you had a feeling that the Mercury were going to do this. They were up 21-7 at one point, and for the most part during this season in the wubble that we've seen in this very unusual season, the Mercury are usually in cruise control when they have that kind of deficit, but then the Lynx come back, and it doesn't help that they also had Sylvia Fowles back for the first time in over a month. And then things get down to the wire. You still had a couple of 2 4-point plays from Diana Taurasi, yet that still wasn't enough. And again, like you said, it came down to the very last couple of seconds. Skylar Diggins-Smith, the newest addition to the Mercury, and she's going to be around for a while now, thank goodness. But she ultimately could not do what Shea Petty could, and tragically, and in a great twist of irony as well, Caleb, the season comes to an end for the Phoenix Mercury, almost the same way that their season was given a lifeline just days before this game against the Lynx.
Yeah, it was very impressive, especially they knocked off the defending champions of the WNBA. So this wasn't an easy task. Getting this far was already a huge accomplishment. And of course, like I said, they did what the Phoenix Suns couldn't. Not only did they make it to the playoffs, they made it even a round further than them. So that they'll end up in the history books this year having a better season than the Suns. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. But at the same time, Caleb, that kind of sounds like a slight against the Suns. I mean, obviously, the thing was, the difference between the Mercury and the Suns is the Mercury had control over where they were going to be placed in the playoffs. But the Suns, they balled out, and yet still, it was still, their destiny was not up to them, sadly enough. They had to wait on everybody else. But you know what? The Suns have a great future based on what we saw from what they did in the bubble, and we all know how great the Mercury can play. They've got what is universally accepted as the GOAT of women's basketball. She has her own street in downtown Phoenix. She's the
I believe it's Taurasi Way, right?
Yes,
Taurasi Way.
Nobody has more points than Miss Diana Taurasi, but the thing is, I don't know what the postseason holds right now, or the offseason, I should say. It's a little too early for that at the moment, but I can tell you this, that I would like to believe that Diana Taurasi is going to stick around for at least another season, and the problem with that is, like, this is kind of the same conundrum we have with Larry Fitzgerald. Is he going to come back? Is Diana going to come back? I would like to believe she can. Just because she's 38 years old doesn't mean she's still got game, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know what the offseason holds, but I can't say that the Mercury delivered even without one of their best players, Brittany Griner. But I think with Skyward Diggins-Smith now on the team, Brondello's not going anywhere, obviously. I would like to believe Griner's coming back too, but it really is a shame that the Mercury had to end their season the way they did when they were fighting tooth and nail, but ultimately they were just running on fumes as well, and you can't run on fumes forever. You can't run on luck forever. Waiting until the last second or having the game come down to the last couple of seconds and then trying to win it from there, that's not a sound strategy. I'm not saying that's the Mercury strategy, but that's just not a formula for success in the end. Props to the Mercury, though, for a fantastic season anyway.
And to be fair, I mean, the Suns and the Mercury had different seasons. When the Suns came into the bubble, they were just resuming season play. The Mercury played their entire season this year in the bubble, so a little bit of a difference there. But I'd say the Mercury had more of a bigger challenge than the Suns. That's why I think they will have the history books will show they had a more successful season. So
I think if there's one thing you can say is that I don't think Shea Petty is going to be cut anytime soon.
So it went down the history books as a more successful season than the Suns when it comes to the dominant basketball team in the state of Arizona. But now going to this last question, Jose. Diana Taurasi, I mean, like you said, she's pretty much coming to the point where it's almost time to be retiring from the sport of basketball. Does she return one more year next season, or is this it?
I think she stays. Just because she's 38 years old, I mean, that's a very long time, obviously, to be a basketball player. Vince Carter played till he was 44 in his 40s, early 40s. I can't remember if he stopped at 41, but if Carter can do it, I believe the universal greatest women's basketball player of all time today can certainly go on for just as long. Just because she's a mother, it doesn't mean anything either. There are several people in the WNBA who are mothers as well, also actively playing. There's no reason to doubt that, I think, other than the fact that maybe it's just a concern over longevity. But of course, you could say the same thing about Larry Fitzgerald. He's still doing just fine. He's found a way to still contribute to the team as a slot receiver than he has as a wideout now in recent times. And Diana Taurasi, she's a smart player. She knows what she's capable of. She'll listen to Sandy Brondello, whatever role she has in store for Diana Taurasi, and whether that's helping teach the next generation of this team, whatever the starting five will look like in the future. You can guarantee Diana Taurasi will be an influential part in passing the torch. I don't think she's leaving today, tomorrow, or next season. She'll be here. She can't live without at least one last run, and not without Brittany Griner at her side either. The two best players on this team, and two of the best basketball players in this state.
I like hearing that. The future is bright for the Mercury, and we'll be looking forward to it. Another thing I'm going to be looking forward to is her cameo in Space Jam 2. So a lot to look forward to in 2021 for Diana Taurasi, not just for the Mercury.
I would love to see that. I can't wait.
Yes, it's going to be an exciting year for sure. Well, Jose, thank you so much for all your expert analysis, and what a way to make your first appearance on here. So thanks so much for coming on. We got to have you on more often. It's so much fun. So
I'd be happy to. I'd really be happy to. Thank you for having me on.
All right.
With news of Big Ten football returning in October, the Pac-12 Conference is now the only Power 5 conference without a current plan to play sports this fall. All eyes are now on the Pac-12 as there has been recent discussion sparked about the conference making a return before its initial delay until January. The conference's recent partnership with Quidel Corp will help with that, as schools will soon be able to perform daily, rapid COVID tests on athletes, with results coming back in just 15 minutes. The next step for the conference to return to the field sooner than expected would be to get clearance to practice for the schools in California and Oregon, which would have to be done at the local level after Governors Gavin Newsom and Kate Brown cleared the way for colleges to practice. With these factors and the reality that teams will need to take a little while to just practice, the Pac-12 likely won't follow the same timeline as the Big Ten. We could see a return to the field earlier than expected, which would most likely fall between late November and early December. This should all bring relief to college hoops fans, as earlier this week the NCAA announced that college basketball will be starting on November 25th. This does give the Pac-12 the opportunity to align their basketball season with the rest of the country and move up their start date while still having time to prepare for the season and having the resources to rapidly test athletes.
For the first time ever in NFL history, one of the greatest quarterbacks of our time, Tom Brady, did not play in a New England Patriots uniform. Instead, he's off playing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are trying to make a huge accomplishment that no other team has done: make it to the Super Bowl while hosting it on their own home turf. For more on this story on Tom Brady's Week 1 performance against the New Orleans Saints and what they have to do to get there, here's Emily Bernstein with the latest.
Coming off the National Football League centennial season, a new era has begun for the NFL. Not just because fans are limited or banned from games, but it's a new era for one of the most talented quarterbacks in football. For the first football Sunday of the season, Tom Brady's first game since 2000 without the New England Patriots had the most attention from Week 1 action. Brady is known for his 20 seasons spent with the Patriots and holds the NFL record for the longest time playing quarterback for one franchise. Watching him walk out in uniform with the same number but in Tampa Bay colors felt different. With no prior preseason experience with his new team due to the pandemic, Brady needed to make things work straight out of the gate in Week 1 of the regular season. Brady started off the game against the New Orleans Saints by running the first touchdown. Patriots fans watched him off to a great start and missed him dearly. However, his debut went downhill after an early touchdown. The rest of the first half shifted lenses for the Buccaneers' loss. Brady ended the game with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, along with 3 sacks and an intentional grounding penalty. He finished 23 for 36 for 239 yards, according to CBS Boston statistically. His Tampa debut did not go like he had envisioned life outside of New England.
Winning the game is a byproduct of doing a lot of things the right way. And, that goes all the way down into your practice, to your preparation, to your attitude, to your teamwork, to your commitment, to your discipline, to your determination, to how tough you are mentally, physically. Are you making the right plays on a daily basis? And, we got to, all those things come up and we're going to improve them. We see they're not right. We're going to try to improve them.
A lot of what went wrong during Week 1 was the same common errors as last year. He has cobwebs he needs to figure out how to get out of for the remainder of the season to continue his legacy. Although this was only one game in for Tampa, their performance against the New Orleans this past Sunday has shown they have a lot of work to do if they want to be the first ever NFL team in history to reach the Super Bowl while hosting it on their home turf. The Bucs will be back for Week 2 as they take on the Carolina Panthers this Sunday from Raymond James Stadium. For AZ Sports Box, I'm Emily Bernstein.
As Arizona high schools prepare for scrimmages, there's a very inspirational story going on in Tucson at Marana High School, where quarterback Josh Roman has been working his way back from an injury. For more on that story, here's Jose Solis.
Collarbone injuries are dangerous enough for quarterbacks, but suffering 2 in a single season put a massive dent into Josh Roman's burgeoning high school career.
I felt like I let my team down by getting hurt a second time. I had felt like I had a responsibility to show up, and I ended up breaking it again. Emotionally, I felt like I wasn't there with the team, and physically.
While re-strengthening his collarbone with shoulder exercises, Roman found solace in Marana football coach Luis Ramirez, who had seen a similar injury while coaching former Northern Arizona quarterback Case Cookus.
The primary example I gave Josh was Case and how he battled through that and ended up being the NAU's career passing and touchdown leader. You just got to have a mentality to persevere and fight through that.
A 2019 study published by the American Orthopedic Society for Sports Medicine found football among some of the higher rates for collarbone fractures in high school sports. Fortunately, the odds of re-injury for Roman will be very low moving forward.
So currently I have a metal plate in my collarbone that goes from almost my neck all the way down to my shoulder. The doctor said that I'm most likely unable to break that collarbone again.
Roman knows that he, as a quarterback, is a major target for other teams, but he willingly accepts that, knowing that his team is counting on him.
You can't play timid in this sport. Football is a violent sport, and the more you play timid, the more susceptible you are to, for injuries to happen.
So I know that my trainer, my family, they're all telling me to stay mentally strong, to not get worried, because if I play worried or I play afraid, then my game will go down.
Ready to play again, Roman now awaits for football's return, eager to prove his fortitude as one of the toughest quarterbacks around. Jose Solis, AZ Sports Box.
While we have no idea when ASU sports season will start, whether if it's October, November, or even January, which is the default plans right now, I got a chance to speak with a couple ASU student athletes from volleyball to wrestling to men's hockey to discuss how this past COVID-19 pandemic has affected their offseason.
Not relenting, he's got him turned. How about that?
Since March 12th of this year, all of Arizona State's sporting events were shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. No matter where each team was in the season, whether if they were in the middle of regular season play or postseason play, all student athletes were forced to end their season abruptly without getting a chance to play for an NCAA title.
Like, you watching TV and everything, and I saw like NBA, like professional sports were shutting down, and I'm like, I can only imagine like what's about to happen next.
The NBA is suspending the season.
ACC announcing just minutes ago they too have canceled their conference tournament.
Well, we're here in Las Vegas right now, T-Mobile Arena, and this is not the conversation I thought we would be having.
With collegiate sports shut down indefinitely and student athletes having to stay at home for the first few months of the pandemic, this past offseason could not have been more challenging for these Sun Devils, as no exact start date has been set for the upcoming season.
At first, there was like, okay, we got to keep working out, because I feel like if the tournament is just postponed, then all right, then obviously you want to be in shape, like the shape we were already in. So, at first it was like, yeah, let's just stay on the grind. But you just see that, okay, a lot of stuff is changing in the world.
We were like in the middle of our spring season. We were like getting ready to play actually like other opponents, and it really, like, I want to say it only took like 2 weeks where it kind of just like everything just like stopped.
We're still practicing, obviously getting ready for the tournament, and probably an hour later that night we got a Zoom call with Coach Powers, and he just followed up and told us everything was kind of canceled.
But soon, the wait to resume ASU sports could finally be over, with the Pac-12 expected to make a decision this Thursday on their official start date for next season. ASU student athletes could soon be competing again as early as this November. But for now, the current plans for the Sun Devils' return is not until early January.
I'd say like we have been training with our trainer and practices and stuff. So right now we're kind of just preparing for January, because that's like the most realistic, sounds like. But we should be able to prepare for just about anything right now.
Now we're definitely working out again, within the guidelines that we can, and as safely as we can. But if we do finally get the the okay to get back to competing, I know flipping that switch on shouldn't be that hard for this team, because we already believe in ourselves a lot and we feel like we have something to prove.
Playing was just a huge life lesson on you never know when things can end, and you never know when your last game's going to be. So you got to make every moment count, and you got to just have fun and enjoy the moment.
For AZ Sports Box, I'm Caleb Bushy.
On Thursday, the Coyotes named Bill Armstrong as their new general manager. Now, Armstrong has been with the Blues since 2004 and previously served as their assistant GM and director of amateur scouting from 2018. He'll be joining the Coyotes on a 4-year deal with a team option for the 5th year. Now, this move comes after John Shaika stepped down from the position on the eve of the Stanley Cup playoffs, which led to Steve Sullivan serving as the interim GM during their postseason. Armstrong is taking up the mantle after a rocky month for the franchise that saw them penalized for scouting violations that will cost them future draft picks. His first order of business as GM is to persuade Taylor Hall to stay in the Valley, as the 2018 Hart Trophy winner is set to become an unrestricted free agent in less than a month. These ongoing negotiations between Hall and the Coyotes will be a major tone setter for the offseason, as the Coyotes will look to continue their climb after making the playoffs for the first time in 8 years. Well, it's been a very exciting week for Arizona sports, Caleb, and now it's time for everybody's favorite segment, Top Plays.
Let's start off with Arizona Cardinals at our number 3 play. Quarterback Kyler Murray throws a deep ball right field, and it's caught by Christian Kirk. Look at that one-handed catch. The Cardinals would later go on to beat Washington to remain undefeated.
Coming in at number 2, the Diamondbacks taking on the Astros as Cole Calhoun with the no-doubter 3-run shot off of guess who? Zach Greinke, the former Diamondback. That would be Cole Calhoun's first home run out of 2 on the day, as the Diamondbacks would win it 6-3 over Houston.
At our number 1 top play of the week, there's no debate here. It's round 1 of the WNBA playoffs. Shea Petty of the Phoenix Mercury with the buzzer beater. The Mercury would end up taking down the defending champs to advance to round 2. Unfortunately, though, they would end up getting eliminated by Minnesota in the next round. Well, it's time for my favorite segment of the show, and Jude, Top Plays may be your favorite, but this is mine. It's our special guest of the week, and this week we actually didn't have an ASU alum. She's an NAU alum and the first woman special guest on our show. She's currently a sports anchor and reporter at 3TV and CBS 5 AZ Family. It's none other than Tressa Tedrick. Here is the interview. Well, for our special guest of the week, once again, for ASB Weekly, we have, this week, we don't have an ASU Cronkite alum. We have an NAU alum for the first time. Well, I think this is the first NAU journalist I've ever met. And she's with Channel 3, 3TV, and CBS 5. As a, you're a sports anchor and reporter?
Yes.
Well, this
Dual
is...
jobs. And a day too.
Oh, yeah. And you're also teaching television sports reporting at the ASU Cronkite School, which is awesome. I mean, honest opinions, I think the Cronkite School is a better journalism program than NAU.
Hey, I think they're both great. Speaking from experience and being as a adjunct faculty at ASU, I see so many opportunities, but for the experience that I got at NAU, being able to get a job in Market 11, 12 out of school, I think it paid off.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Well, Tressa Tedrick, welcome to the show. Obviously, I know you have a limited time here, so I'll try to make this fast. But thanks so much for coming on, especially with this Labor Day weekend going on. I know it's been super busy, but especially with football season coming up. So, yeah, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to talk with me. So,
of course.
Yeah, so, my first question is very simple, like everyone else. Like, what's your origin point to how you got into journalism? Like, where did it start? Like, was it high school or was it when you were picking degrees in college?
So I've known since I wrote it in my 6th grade yearbook that I wanted to be a sports journalist. I didn't know how to do that or what that was going to entail, but I just always was around football. So the second my brother was old enough to pad up, that's what he did. He was in football, so accompanying me. We're a year apart. I was a cheerleader. So, gosh, 15 years we spent, Pop Warner football to I was in high school. I made varsity, and it just kind of progressed. But our weeks looked like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We had Pop Warner practice. Friday, we went to the high schools, Chino Hills High, to watch the games. Then Saturday, we'd have our Pop Warner game or catch USC, UCLA on TV. And then Sunday would be the NFL. So that's just all I knew. It was something that was so easy and natural to me, was to love the game of football. So that's kind of where this love for wanting to be a sports journalist really started. And my parents didn't go to college, so I didn't really know what that would look like from the college landscape. But I got a postcard in the mail from NAU, and they said, come to us. And I said, all right, cool. So that's why I did it.
Yeah, I know the whole Flagstaff area is actually pretty nice. I think it's a nice territory because it's like literally the only town in the state that doesn't look more of a desert setting. It's like more of a kind of forest kind of take, which is super nice. Yeah, so you went to NAU they just reached out to you, or were there any other universities you were considering?
So I got a postcard in the mail, and my cousin was going to NAU, my older cousin. I didn't know where Flagstaff was. I grew up in Southern California. I didn't even know anything about it, but it just looked interesting. I went from the beach to the mountains, and not particularly. NAU just kind of really stuck out and was the only, it was like, yeah, this makes sense. My cousin's there. I'll have somebody I know. And that was pretty much it. I knew I wanted to get out of the state though.
I bet. I mean, I have the same feelings here in Arizona, living here for so long. I just want to change the setting. But
Scenery.
yes, I definitely understand that. But then once you graduated college, you was Channel 12 kind of the first like main employer you went to, or was it?
Yeah, so I finished my undergrad when I was 20. So, applying for TV jobs when you're 20 years old, with only the college experience, it was kind of like, no, you're too this, you're too that. You're not old enough, you're not experienced enough, you're not blonde. I mean, fill in the blank, whatever it was. So I left and went to Europe for 6 months, took a hiatus, took a little break because I was a little burnt out from school. And when I was in Europe, I got a call from the then dean, Dr. Norm Medoff, who asked if I wanted to come back and teach. And I was like, oh, okay. He said, we'll take care of your master's degree if you teach the announcing and broadcast class up at NAU. So from that class, I was the TA teaching assistant for then Dr. Dale Hoskins, who was retiring. So they needed someone to teach the class. So I was like, awesome. I kind of know the scope of it. So that's really where I started the teaching aspect. And I did that degree. And the summer before I graduated, because I graduated December, I got an internship offer at Channel 12. And from there, it turned into a full-time job for about 2.5 years.
And during those years, did you get to work with the absolutely amazing Bruce Cooper, who is now retired?
Absolutely. I learned so much from Coop. He's taught me so much when it comes to the non-TV side of things, like how to, be a genuine human, which is what he is. What you see on TV is how he is off camera. And he taught me, how important it is to be immersed in the community with high school football, his Friday Night Fever show. And that was my passion, was high school football and football in general. So I found a niche in that, and I can totally jump on board with his message about it. So he was such a great mentor, and I still consider him a dear friend of mine.
Yeah, Coop is awesome. I need to get him on as well. It's even though he's retired, I'm sad to see he's not on TV anymore because he is such a great personality just to know as a person, not just a broadcaster. But when you got to Channel 3, obviously Channel 3 was going through a major change because they were going from the independent station alone to getting sold to what was the Meredith Corporation, who owned CBS 5, and now they're conjoined as one conglomerate. So when you came in there, how'd that situation all play out? Did the sale have anything to do with it, or?
Well, truthfully, the sale had actually happened about 3 to 4 years before I was there. So when I maybe got to the Phoenix market is when that was all happening. But for me in particular, when it came to my job, like at 3 TV, CBS 5, it was already, Arizona's Family is what we call it. It was already worked out. So I didn't really have to go into any of those kinks. But I went from one job, I got married, and then I got the job at 3 TV, CBS 5. So it was like all bang, 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 bang. So it kind of went together. It was really seamless almost to an extent.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of work. And especially, I think, because when TV mergers happen, they have to get an FCC approval, and it's a very long process. So, I mean, there's no doubt. I think Channel 3 went through a couple of years of transition from owner to owner to make sure everything went well.
Sure.
But you do mention you're married, and especially, I've always heard this in the journalism school. Personally, for me, I disagree with it, but they always say never get married or get tied to anyone. Because, when you're in this business, you're jumping from like market to market, and it requires a lot of travel.
Sure.
How are you able to keep up with that while being balanced with being married,
Yeah, so that's funny. I remember hearing that growing up in school, but I have always kind of trusted God to kind of lead me to what's going to be my next step. And in particular, on my first date with my then not boyfriend, just the guy I met, I mentioned, he was like, I'm interested in buying a house. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if, this is going to work because I don't know if I'm going to be here in 6 months. And he laughed and he said, oh, we can just rent it out. That's fine. I'll go where you go. So I think it's really important to have a partner who's on board and supportive about what this job really entails. For him, he knows that I'm working weekends. He knows that, right when we go from church, I'm going to drive straight to work. So it's, and then even some days if the Cardinals play earlier, or if they're on the road, then I'm not going in the morning. It's a very unpredictable schedule. So I don't think stopping anybody from getting married, if that's what they want to do, should be something, young journalists consider necessarily if they're able to work it out with their partner. So there's going to be a lot of strife in the sense of scheduling. You're not going to be able to be off every holiday. You know, people watch sports when Thanksgiving's happening, Christmas, I mean, all these things. So I think if your partner is on board about that, you can really have a truly happy and successful marriage and still have a career too. You can do both. It's just going to be a little bit more of a balancing act.
Yeah, I bet. I'm sure it's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to scheduling and having that life like that. But kind of going into more your religious views, you know, you're a Christian, and I think was on your Twitter, you have a Proverbs 31:30 verse.
Yes.
Which says, which is the verse right here I see, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Why of all the verses, why choose that as like your main verse, and like kind of explain how that came as your motto?
Sure. So Proverbs 31 in particular, that whole chapter is like the embodiment of like my idea of like this perfect woman, and not even my idea, God's idea, you know. And it just really stuck out to me. Like if there was anyone to have a role model, it's that Proverbs 31 woman, because she, you know, keeps her house together. She's organized. She takes care of the family, but she's still successful. She works hard. Like these are all qualities that I try to emulate in myself and in my marriage. And do I ever meet the Proverbs 31 all the time? Heck no. But it's something I really strive to be, and I try to have that be something I resonate with. So it's something that stuck out to me years ago. I think I saw that verse in particular in college, and I was like, yeah, that's what I want to be. That's who I want to be. I want to be Proverbs 31. And for me, my faith, it was never like a separation. It's just who I am at my core, you know. I've always been a Christian. I've always been drawn, and I never saw it as a separation either, because separating the two, it was just like, no, that's who I am. It's part of my personality. It's part of my being as a Christian.
Yeah, I'm more of a Philippians 4:13 kind of guy, but no, that's a great verse. And when it comes like to your beliefs, because to kind of blend it in, but not blend it into what's going on in the school right now, because everyone is like facing a tough challenge right now. But like it's always hard to kind of, you know, embrace your Christianity views, especially since you're in the journalism world that is very tough and very harsh. How are you able to, you know, keep that going and still embrace your views, especially if you're getting harsh dialogue from it?
I think for me, I've seen nothing but a lot of support from people. I don't look at it as like a cross or a burden to bear. I think for me, if there's anything, you know, the Bible says it's like love God and then love other people. And that's what I really try to do in my job and my work, how I treat others with respect, you know, mindful of people's time, thanking them abundantly, you know, for giving me a chance to tell their story, because I'm just the medium and the platform, you know, but I think my calling is really to get other people's stories and messages across. So I see it as an opportunity and just a chance to love on people and to be compassionate and understanding and supportive. So that's really where I see it in my career, so to speak.
Yeah, just like be nice. I think that's like the easiest two words to describe.
Be nice, yep.
And I've always heard this, like, yeah, you treat the EM as much as the GM, you know, treat everyone with the same amount of respect that you would want to be treated, no matter their religious views or whatever.
And then some.
Yeah, for sure. So
Totally.
definitely agree with that. But kind of going more into the sports broadcast career, we got Cardinals season coming up this Sunday, which is crazy. There's no preseason, so they're just
I know, just right into it.
going straight into it. But you know, you say you love football. ASU football is unfortunately on hold for now. They might start in November, December. But what's been like your favorite broadcast moments covering the sport of football?
Oh, you know, honestly, it depends on the level, because I have such a heart for high school sports and the high school football in particular. And I do these things called the huddle, but I mean, that might be a little different now with COVID, but you know, I get a bunch of players around me and we go crazy and we just are celebrating, and I just let that be their moment. You know, you're only in high school once, you're going to have this memory, and you might remember 10 years from now when you were on our varsity zone, you know, and I just try to make that moment shine for them. So, you know, talking to those coaches after a win, it's just exciting. Being at an ASU football game, for me in particular, NAU was a smaller school, so it didn't really have the big boom with, you know, the fireworks and the all the jazz and the pomp and circumstance. So being in that environment, was so rewarding as a journalist, just seeing it, taking it all in. Because for me, it's not just about the football, it's the ambiance, it's the emotion behind it, it's the grit, the tenacity, what it took to get to this moment is all the stuff that really inspires me as a journalist. And then when I got to cover an NFL game for the first time last season, it was actually against the 49ers, ironically. I remember just being like, wow, God, this is so cool. Like, being able to be in that moment and be on the sideline and see, I'd gone to practices, but actually covering the game was just incredible. And I was just so thankful and blessed for the opportunity, quite frankly. It's just like, wow, this is so cool. So I think every single moment has just kind of been a wow moment. And that's how I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because it doesn't feel like work. Like, yes, the hours are kind of like, but the good outweighs the bad every time, hands down.
Yeah, I bet. I remember I covered my first game, like on the field wise for ASU football, not just doing play-by-play. And the experience was like, it was so hard not to geek out and keep my professionalism at the same time.
Sure. And that's important too as a sports journalist.
Yeah.
You don't want to lean one way or the other. You just want to report what you're seeing.
Yeah, but at the same time, like it's not easy getting there. And when that moment you feel you're there, an event like a Cardinals game, it is so hard to keep the emotions in check because, it wasn't an easy road to get. So for sure. And, outside of football, is there any memorable broadcast moments, like whether it was with the Suns? I know you said like the tradition of ASU football with the fireworks. I'm surprised you've never been to a Rattlers game with the concussion bomb.
Hello?
What? Wait, can you hear me?
Are you there?
Yes.
Sorry, it
Yes.
cut out. I didn't hear what you said.
But sorry about that. My internet connection, or I can't tell. Something is unstable. But I'll edit it out. But as far as like outside of the sport of football, was there any memorable broadcast moments like you've had with the Suns or the Coyotes that you'd say is like any of those teams that have been the most memorable for you in your career?
I think with every sport, honestly, I could pick one. I look at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, and just being in that golf crazy was one thing. Covering tailgate parties, Coyotes in particular, catching up with goalie Darcy Kemper after he threw down a couple punches for his teammate Jason Demers, just there's so many moments. They're talking to head coach Rick Tocchet from the Coyotes, after his starting goalie goes down after 12 games, just the Suns. And I think Aiton's pretty funny to talk to when you get him going. Devin Booker's always such a professional. I mean, there's so many, everybody. I feel like this is such a great market to work in because you have so many different sports and athletes and personalities and all the SIDs and the media relations departments and all the sports across all platforms, from the NFL to the MLB, NHL, everyone, even down to ASU and Doug and Mark Brandon, everybody, so helpful and accommodating. So favorite moments, anytime there's a good time. So anytime it's exciting, but at the same time, on the contrary, if it's even, as a journalist, you're challenged more when it is a loss or something that's more challenging. So I look forward to both opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds awesome. And, at this point in your broadcast career, you're on a major station in a major market. Is this, do you still have any goals going forward? Like, do you want to eventually get to ESPN or NBC Sports or any of those big national platforms? Or is this like kind of the peak you want to be at?
I don't think I want to say I've arrived, because once you start thinking that way as a journalist, then, what's the point of even doing it? So I kind of leave everything up in the air, but I love where I'm at. I love my station. I love where I live. I love everything about what this job has to offer me, and it's just rewarding every day. So when I get the feeling, typically, like for me, it's like when God speaks to me and he's like, okay, hey, it's time to move on. Like if I got that, that's when I would start looking. But for me right now, this is such a good place to be. I got a baby on the way. It's just, I love covering Phoenix. I love being here. But whatever could happen, it's all in God's hands. We'll see.
Especially since we're in the middle of a COVID-19 pandemic, I'm sure that's pretty tough to do. And that kind of brings me to the next question. With COVID-19 going on, and I'm sure there have been numerous times you've had to work from home. How's that change kind of been since everything happened, like the day that sports stopped in March? like, where were you at when all that happened and everything, like, kind of had to go on pause?
Yeah, so it actually started happening. My family and I, we were vacationing, visiting my family in California. So we were there like the week before COVID. So like as we're driving back, I'm getting these notifications that games are being canceled or postponed. And I'm like, what is going on? And then it like shut down, like we're done. And I'm like, holy moly, what is this going to look like? What are we going to cover? And for the first, I'd say month, like throughout the rest of March, it was pretty difficult, you know, coming up with stories, you know, sports from home. I was doing Zoom calls with gyms, karate. I mean, just doing whatever I could. And then once the team started having, you know, Zoom calls, the high school sports were canceled. So for me, I was reaching out to baseball players in their senior year, softball players, tennis, anybody whose season was canceled, and trying to give them a chance to, you know, recognize and highlight them. So I did a bunch of high school stories that weren't football because it wasn't relevant at the time for these particular stories. So I was reaching out to the community saying, I'm so sorry this happened. I would love to share your story. So I was doing a lot of that. I bought, you know, a nice big light, and I got a microphone, and I've been doing my stand-ups. My husband has been remodeling the office. So this isn't the backdrop I use. I typically flip it, but you know, you have to have a good work from home setting. And yeah, I think it's, you know, it's a challenge. You just got to roll with the punches. No one could have predicted this. So I take it, you know, as an opportunity.
I like hearing that for sure. I always like look. I don't look at something like this as an obstacle. I look at it as a challenge, you know, and bring it on. So love hearing that. And kind of wrap things up here. It's my last question for like any future journalists out there who are just getting in their first year at Cronkite, and unfortunately, it's a crazy time with the pandemic and controversy, tackling the school hard. What advice would you give to them, especially for them that want to build their highlight reel, but they'd have to do it from their dorm or apartment or at home? What advice would you give to them?
So just because you have to do it from home doesn't mean the quality has to lack. I would encourage everyone, especially if you're not able to go out and cover games or cover sports, get yourself a light, get yourself a microphone, work on your background, all things that I've had to do at the professional level, and watch a game on TV, watch a practice, do something, do the stand-ups. This job is all about reps and repetition. If I look at my stuff, gosh, even when I was at 12 from when I started to where I am now, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did you put me on TV? But it's all about experience and reps. So I would say work your butt off, even if you're from home. That shouldn't be a reason. You could build your demo reel. You could do takes from home about the Stanley Cup playoffs. You could be talking about the NBA right now. Hello, NFL starts this week. What are the major storylines? You could do it from the Arizona perspective. You could do it nationally. You know, the world is your oyster when it comes to what sports are happening right now, and you're able to cover whatever you want. So you could practice what you're saying in your stand-ups. You could reach out to other journalists. Say, hey, how are you doing the gig? Just kind of like what you asked about Zoom calls and working from home. You know, be proactive. Build a website. I mean, you don't want to talk to a future employer and say you didn't do squat during the pandemic because you just weren't proactive. You want to say, no, I built my website. I reached out to these people. Hey, here's a bunch of stand-ups and takes I've done. What do you think? So just keep grinding. I mean, that's what it is, especially in college and through your first job and your internships. That's what it is. It's a grind to where you don't want to say you've arrived, but where you get to a place where you're more comfortable, where you're not stressing so much about writing a package because you've done it a million times. And it becomes a little more second nature. I wouldn't say it's always second nature, but for me, I'm not stressing exactly what I'm going to say in my stand-up. Like, I know it'll just kind of come to me. So it's all about reps. So keep grinding.
That is extremely true, especially since I'm going into my senior year. I mean, everyone is talented and everyone can show that they're perfectly capable of doing a package or anchoring, but consistency is key, and to just keep going, especially.
And a work ethic. You want to have a really strong work ethic because that's going to stick out and stand out above everybody else. So everyone's able to do the thing, but what are you able to add? You know, work all the time. That's what I did.
Well, I would agree work ethic is a good term, but I would say, like, you just gotta want it. You gotta want it more than anyone else in that newsroom. Is the way I would kind of describe it. But yeah, consistency is key, and work ethic, and yeah, just putting 110% every day.
And I would say with that as well, you know, there is enough room for everybody. I'm a firm believer in that you don't have to conduct yourself in a way to where it's all about you, TV. You know, be courteous and kind to your fellow journalists that you're working with. You know, if I didn't have that, I guess, when I was not working at 12 and going to 3-5, I got from 3-5 based on my recommendations from people in the Valley, based on people who've worked with me. Like, they knew who I was because we were competitors. So if I was a jerk to them, I probably wouldn't be working at 3TV CBS 5. So always be professional. Always treat people with respect. And just because they're your competitor or you're trying to be the best, like, you could still be the best, but be kind about it. So I would also emphasize that.
Yeah, that's
it's
hard
important
to
to
do.
be a good person above being a great journalist.
Yeah, I would say it's not easy to do, especially since you're in a very competitive field. But everyone knows, like, everyone's probably going to end up getting split up after college anyways, and everyone's just going to do just fine.
Yes.
But yeah, be careful how you treat people, because they could end up being your boss. So
Yeah, or your colleagues or whatever.
yeah, for sure. So, well, Tressa, thanks so much for coming on. You know, good luck to you, especially with football season going on. I hope everything goes safely, especially with COVID going on. Yeah, good luck to you, and thanks so much. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and best of luck with the rest of your senior year. Kick some butt.
yes, thank you. Well, our thanks to Tressa Tedrick, Jose Solis, and my good friend Jude Binkley for joining me on the show. It's been an exciting week. Let's hope it keeps going with the Cardinals going 2-0 with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins.
Fingers crossed.
We'll see about that. We'll have to show all that and more next week. Of course, we got the MLB bubble news that we couldn't cover on today's show. We will talk about that more next week. That is going to do it. For Jude Binkley, Jose Solis, I'm Caleb Bushy saying goodbye for now, and enjoy the week ahead, everyone.